everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. We have folks from all around the world. This is the first time I think we've ever sold out a webinar, and as such, we've added 2 more over the next couple of weeks, but we're very proud to have you all here. When I say we, I have Rob Thiessen, who is our Vice President of Sales, also known here as the VP of Good Times. There's a poster that sits right by his desk that has a picture of him having a good time, and so he makes sure that we have fun around here. And me, I'm John McInnes. I'm the President of Print Audit. Today we're going to be talking about the new Facilities Manager version 3. And the way that we'll do this and the agenda for today is we've got a quick overview by Rob on how new alerting works, and in a couple of minutes I'll pass it over to Rob to show you just an overview. Then I'm going to try and stump Rob on how people who use FM can get the biggest bang out of the new features. So we'll be talking about the people that actually use it, you guys, and all of our customers and members and dealers out there. Then I'm going to answer some questions. Rob will actually be the primary guy answering questions because he's our VP of Sales, and he's also the most technically adept in this right now for showing how to use the system. The way to ask questions, it's not going to be because we've got well over 100 people on the call today. The way that we're going to have you ask questions is in your GoToMeeting, there's actually a questions window. You can type out your question. It'll pop up on my screen, and after Rob's finished with all my questions to him, we'll get to yours. Any questions we don't get to because of time will be answered directly by somebody at Print Audit. So somebody will get in touch with you from Print Audit if we don't happen to answer your question. All right, so I'm hoping that that's pretty clear. Our goal is to try and keep the presentation and discussion portion of this down to about half an hour, 40 minutes, and then have lots of time for questions at the end. We're booked for an hour today. Hopefully we don't take all of that time for you, but we're of course available for as long as this takes to get through it. Okay. So let's talk about Facilities Manager. We are really excited about what we've done here. We've invested over 2 years into the improvements that you're about to see. On the surface, the improvements will seem like no-brainers and simple. Most of the work was done under the covers to make it that way. We know that no one has anything like this on the planet, and that it will take a long time for competitors to catch up. And so with that, I'm going to pass the con over to Rob to show you how the new alerting system works.
Thanks very much, John. Appreciate that introduction. I guess the best way to show you how this system works is to really just take you into the interface. As many of you know, so there's people who are current customers on the line as well as new customers. Our device monitoring system is fully cloud-based. So at this point, I'm just going to log into our system. And at that point, of course, we're looking at the basic interface. Now, new in the system is this tab right here. It's the Alerting tab, which has been broken out from the Device Management tab. And you'll see why in a moment. We've really enhanced the features around alerting. And that's the nature of this new version, is really all of the improvements are in the alerting and supplies and service management side. So to begin with, we'll just start by looking at the basic alerting profile. So profiles are used to manage devices in our system. They can be applied to individual printers or thousands of printers all at once. Profiles allow people to manage large number of devices very quickly and very easily. If I was to create a new profile, I simply click on the button on the side here, and at that point I'm given the option to create a new profile, and that profile can have any kind of name that you want. It also has the ability to be enabled or disabled with a click of a button here. So that's another enhancement to the system, is you can enable or disable profiles at any time. These profiles are built by, first of all, applying them to individual printers, and we can do so either on a dealer customer or site basis, or we can apply those profiles to individual devices. And for example, if we wanted to add devices in our system, and let's say we wanted to add all of the devices that were of a particular brand, we can do a quick search on devices, and all of those that are conforming to that word search or that string would then appear, and at that point those devices could be added very quickly to the alert. So moving through this system and adding devices and organizing alerts is very, very simple. Once we've got devices on the system, we can then determine what type of conditions that our program will be looking for. And those encompass a very, very broad range of different device conditions, consumable conditions, including toner low and empty. We've got status alerts, so if there's service requests or the printer's gone offline or it's jammed, so on and so forth, we can alert for those types of conditions. We can also alert for stale data, so stale data is coming from printers that maybe haven't reported in for a period of time. We've got number of days remaining, so if you want to be able to offer a just-in-time service for your customers with respect to supplies deliveries, what you might want to do is just determine how many days you need in order to deliver toner effectively, and then alert when our program determines that that's how much ink is left in the printer, 5 days worth or something of that nature. And we're getting feedback from dealers that this is a very, very effective way of drop shipping toner to their customers and doing so on a just-in-time basis. We've also got things like cartridge change detected, which is very important for dealers in understanding when their customers are actually swapping out cartridges, so we can alert them when our program detects those type of things. We, of course, alert on all kinds of consumables, whether it's waste toner levels or other consumables such as maintenance kits, fusers, drum kits, imaging units. Really, the whole gambit is available under our alerting system. And something that's been added to, which is rather unique, is the machine alerts, which give you the ability to alert on any type of actual error code that exists on the device, and you can even categorize those based on different manufacturers, whether they might be part of a finishing supply media input or perhaps part of marker colorant and that sort of thing. So obviously there's a lot of customizability in how you create alerts, how you apply them to your fleet, and also what conditions you're watching for when you do create the alert. I'm just going to add an alert at this point for a days remaining, and so we can move on, and we can now look at some of the options with respect to triggering the alert. So this is part of our smart alerting system, the ability to trigger alerts either when the condition occurs or perhaps if the condition has existed continuously for a period of time. And this is a way of filtering out information that you may not be interested in knowing until it reaches a certain critical point, and that could be characterized by how long the alert has existed or whether or not it's happened multiple times within a period of time. Once you've got the filter placed, so you know that this condition existed for a 3-hour period before you received the alert, you can also establish things like when the alert clears. So obviously the most common basis for this would be just simply to let us know that the condition has cleared or the alert is cleared when the condition no longer exists. There are other options here. For increased control, you might want to establish a manual clearing option for the alert, which would force, let's say, an on-site person to actually go into the system and clear the alert manually before it comes off of the active alert list. And that's just designed to enhance control over the alerting process and over the supplies and service management. Once you've got your filtering options, you can then look at notifications. And with our system, we've got notifications that can occur at the time that the condition is recognized by our system, or we can send you essentially a summary of all of the alerts that we've observed over the previous days. So we look at the 24-hour clock, and we determine that, let's say, we want to receive a notification first thing in the morning when we get into the office. So we'll set it for 7 a.m. and we'll get the notification via email. That email could have its own title, as well as many individuals as you like could be receiving that information via their inbox, and all you need to do is add individuals to the send in order to have them receive that information as well, and there's no limit to the number of users that you can add to this system. We also give you options on how to specify the information that comes with the alert, such as, you know, life counts or the LCD text readout on the device itself at the time when the alert became active. Now, the last part that we offer customization on here is, of course, things like advanced settings, which allow you to really drill down and ensure that your smart alerts are meaningful and timely based on perhaps different conditions for different manufacturers, or you know, just the different conditions affecting your processes and your back-end systems. So we can allow you to define things like stale data. How long do you want to wait before you report you know, a stale printer or something of that nature? We also give the ability to define what you regard as low toner, and this has an impact on how both the manual toner change alerts are created, as well as things like the percentage of toner remaining at a low condition. So this is going in a little bit into the advanced settings here, but does offer quite a bit of customizability for how you are both triggering your alerts and also receiving notifications on them. So that's just a really quick run-through of the creation of alerts and some of the customizability that we have on that process. John, do you want to see if there's any questions so far?
Nope, not yet. But I will, and actually there aren't any questions yet. Where you enter questions, folks, is off of GoToMeeting. You're all muted, so you won't be able to come on. We've got over 100 people on the call, so having everybody ask questions at once would be difficult. In the GoToMeeting window, there's two spaces, and questions is where we'd prefer you to ask them, but you can also do it through chat if you can't find the question window. And yeah, we'll go through that. But Rob, wanted to say thanks very much for that. That was a pretty cool, really neat overview of how the new alerting system works, and we're pretty excited about how that works. And but now I'm going to try and stump you. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and hopefully we can go back and forth, and you can show us how actual people use this instead of the technical overview. So without further ado, let me ask you about sales folks. Sales folks are not typically the audience for this type of technology, but they should be. And that's because there's a ton of data in these systems. So Rob, how can a salesperson use FM to win new deals and add revenue in current customers?
Sure. Well, that's a really great question, because these tools are intended to not only help the service side of the business, but also the sales side of the business. And one of the things that we've done is we've added an active alerts page as well as an alerts history page. Probably for the sales side, I think the alerts history page is one of the most you know, important pieces to understand, because we offer the ability to track alerts on, of course, all devices in the environment. And the information we track on that is not just what that alert condition is, but also when that alert became active and when it was cleared. This is very important, because if you can imagine, SLAs associated with service and replenishment would be really dependent upon this time frame right here, the time frame between when a dealer became aware of a condition that exists on a printer and when it had become cleared. Now, that's just part of the pieces that we offer to the sales program, and I want to just combine that with some of the reporting we do, because in our data exports, we've got what we call the competitive analysis report, and that report is very, very important to salespeople. Our dealers typically send this to their salespeople on a pre-scheduled basis and a timely basis, usually once a month, if not more. And what this shows is really the essentially the money that's being left on the table, if you will. When I generate this report, what I'll get is a summary of activity in all of my customers' sites. So we can see that there's 3 customers under the dealership, and devices, as far as devices managed are concerned, in 2 of the 3 environments, we're looking at roughly 70 to 80% of the devices managed. Of course, one of the environments here, we see that we've only got 5% of the devices managed, and we also see total pages associated with those managed devices. In the case of that ABC office equipment, we can see that we're just managing a fraction of the total pages that they are producing in that environment. So right off the bat, this report here will give your customers an idea, your sales reps an idea of where they should be looking for new opportunities. And obviously, the lower the percentage of managed pages, probably the more opportunity or the more money being left on the table. Now, in combination with this top part of the report, you also see that we have a breakdown of which printers are managed versus unmanaged in the environment, as well as a range that the number of pages that they're printing within a month. So if we're seeing that an unmanaged device is printing between 5,000 and 10,000 pages in a month, well, this is certainly something that should be brought to our attention. And at that point, we might want to look at ways to get that printer under management or replace it in some way. And that's where we go back to the alerting, because under the alert history page, what we might want to do is actually turn alerting on for those individual devices that we're not managing, and check to see if they're meeting, those competitive devices are meeting their SLAs, or at least up to the standard with which we're servicing the client. And that can be easily done by just checking the alert history and understanding how long it takes for that other competitive company to offer their supplies and service. Did that answer your question, John?
Yeah, it did, and pretty cool. So it essentially shows when competitors are falling down inside your customers.
Correct.
Yeah, and I really like the competitive analysis. It's a piece that we've had for a long time, but it's probably one of the least used reports that gives you the best idea on how to compete within your own accounts, and also on assessments to see what's going on in an account for the ability to manage other people's devices. So quite frankly, for our dealers, we're quite happy to have you steal competitors' devices and put them on your myth. Okay, so that was a good one, Rob. I'd hate to be a competitor that doesn't have that tool. We also advertise that FM eliminates meaningless alerts. We know that some systems send way too many alerts over and over again to service techs. What's the problem, and how do we solve it?
Well, that's always been, we've heard, a problem with other systems. Some of them are associated with the way the systems actually track alerts. For example, we've often been told about systems that alert every time a scan occurs in the customer's environment. So if for example, if a toner is low within an environment and the system scans that device, determines the toner is low, sends out an alert, in some cases, we've heard that these systems are actually alerting each and every time that the device is scanned, and that condition still exists. That's not the way our system works. First and foremost, and it's always been this way, Print Audit sends out one alert per condition that is met by the system. So our system is smart enough to know if that is a pre-existing condition, and so we will not alert multiple times for the same condition. And that is just part of the system. But what we also offer is the triggering options. So this is what smart alerting is about. It allows you to filter conditions, and I intentionally brought up paper jam alert because This is one of those conditions that if a dealer was to activate a paper jam alert on their MIF as a whole across all their printers, they're likely to get so many alerts back to their service personnel that literally they would be forced to ignore them at a certain point, because let's face it, a single instance of a paper jam is not a very important condition, and it happens quite commonly. What our dealers would want to recognize, though, is if that condition has occurred multiple times on a single printer, because if you've got a printer that's jamming consistently, that could be indicative of other problems that might exist. And so what our dealers do is they filter those types of alerts to show when they're occurring, let's say 5 times within a period of 1 hour, or maybe 10 times within a period of 12 hours. Whatever the threshold is for you, whatever you feel is important, you can give that indication here within the alert triggering options so that you receive this information after it becomes a critical issue and something that you want to address, and not before. So that's one way, John, in which we eliminate the meaningless alerts. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thanks, Rob. Okay, that was very cool again, but let's move forward here so we can get to other people's questions. I've got a couple more things that I want to go through. Supplies company and service managers, they often complain of losing lots of money due to customers removing toner, shaking it, and putting it back, causing device management systems to create orders for multiple toner replacements when, in fact, it's the same toner cartridge. How does FM eliminate this problem, and isn't there a name for it?
Well, yeah, we refer to it as shaken toner syndrome, and it is a very common problem. It's one of the most common things we hear from our current customers, as well as customers that are considering our solution, and working with their current products. It's really one that's been a kind of a bane to the supplies management industry, and that's because it's really occurring at the device, and it's because of user interference that these devices are reporting erroneous information. And what I mean by that is when, let's say, a toner goes low, at the point where that occurs, oftentimes users will reach into the device, pull out the cartridge, and shake it, and then put it back in. And what that actually does is fools the device into thinking that the toner has been replenished for a period of time. It therefore clears the existing condition, and as the toner settles in that cartridge, it now re-triggers an alert, essentially what amounts to a duplicate alert, and sends that over to the dealer. We've heard of situations where this has occurred 45 to 50 times within a 2-day period, okay, where users are just constantly taking cartridges out and shaking them just to get every last little drop out of them. Well, what we've done is we've added the ability to filter on clearing, and when the alert becomes cleared is determined by you, and there's 3 ways to look at this. First of all, you can either clear the alert when the condition no longer exists. That's the default, that's the most common use, but of course in circumstances like shaken toner syndrome, that is not going to be effective. What you might want to do in that situation is actually clear the condition once it has not occurred for a period of time. And the way to look at this is, hey, if we're seeing another condition that appears to be a brand new condition, and yet we saw that condition within the last 24 hours, then obviously we haven't consumed an entire toner cartridge within that period of time, and therefore that additional alert is going to be an erroneous alert and based on information that was spurred by the user's own actions in that environment. So what we might want to do is just add the alert and the condition that we only clear the alert once the condition has not occurred for a 24-hour period. It could be 48 hours. It could be more than that. Maybe it's just 3 hours. Once again, whatever you feel is the appropriate amount of time to wait before that condition can now be acted on once again, it's up to you, but this gives you the flexibility to be able to add that filter into the system. So it's very, very effective, and combined with the advanced settings, we now have essentially eliminated the confusion around when a toner first goes low, when it needs to be replaced, and whether it was in fact replaced or not in the environment. And we've had dealers that are trialing this system tell us that it's reduced their alerting by, in some cases with large MIFs, by thousands and thousands of alerts. So we had one dealer go from an average of 7,000 alerts per month down to just over 1,000 alerts per month. So obviously removing a tremendous amount of clutter from their system.
Well, it's a good thing that their sister is clutter-free now. System. Okay, again, very cool. Looks like we've solved the issue of automatic supplies fulfillment. Thanks for that, Rob. Let's talk about the ICE. The ICE is our data collection agent. It's already the most stable data collection software out there, but people can still turn off a computer and disable it, going home at night or replacing computers or whatever. How did we make it easier for our Premier members and dealers to troubleshoot this problem?
Yeah, good one, because it certainly does happen. As John mentioned, we've got a very stable information collection engine, but nothing can prevent somebody from turning off their computer at night and perhaps, or turning off a server, or blocking communication internally. And when that happens, dealers want to know about it as quickly as possible. So there's really two ways to look at that. We can either go first to the stale data page, which shows you all of the stale printers and stale sites in your MIF with the click of a button. And so within that stale data page, you'll receive information back on any devices that you have set to a tracking level but are not currently reporting or haven't reported in the time frame that they were supposed to. That's one way to gather the information. Another is through the alert profiles itself. So I showed you earlier that we have an alert that's specifically designed to track both stale devices as well as stale sites. And so the difference between the two, of course, is that if a device goes stale, it might be because the device was turned off, or it's been unplugged, or removed from the environment in some way. And at that point, you'll have an individual printer or group of printers that no longer is reporting. Stale site, on the other hand, is where the ICE application itself, the information collection engine, is actually prevented from reporting back to home base, if you will. And as soon as that communication that was supposed to occur doesn't occur, we then inform the dealer through the stale site alert that that site is down. And of course, that's something that every dealer is going to want to address right before billing time, because if it doesn't get into their billing, then they don't get paid. So it's a pretty important piece, and we have solved that issue from essentially two angles.
Cool, Rob. So another stale device thing that could happen is somebody shakes the toner, gets it all over themselves, kicks the printer, and the printer dies. And so we're not going to get we'll get a stale device on that one. Okay, well, I did try to stump you so far, but let's try this one. Can you show me how dealers with help desk systems, NOC, which is Network Operations Center, or any other supplies management systems can add FM data directly to those systems?
Sure. So that goes to our notification settings. I told you earlier that we have the ability to send out, emails with summaries or either individual alerts. There's also the ability in our notification settings to submit information via XML through a web service or web post. So any alerts can be automatically added to a XML output. That output can be directed towards any URL, a web service presumably, and then of course, credentials can be programmed into the system so that the FM system reports out to a back-end ERP system or a ticketing system or any of the management systems that are commonly used today, and at that point, you've got full automation of the process. So that's one of the things that I really like about the changes that we've made here, is we've kind of covered the automation from start to finish, both on how alerts are triggered and the value and quality of those alerts coming into the system, and then also on how this is being delivered to our dealers and to service techs in the field.
Cool. Well, like I said, I did try and stump you on that one, but you beat me again, as you always do. So when I'm looking at this, I think it looks great. I'm really excited about it. We've got a whole bunch of questions from our customers, current customers, and possibly people that are looking to move on to the system. So I'm going to look at some of those questions. I'm going to pass them on to you. Again, folks, if you want to ask questions, there's a questions spot in GoToMeeting that you can type them into, and so we'll go through those over the next little while. Again, if I don't get to your question or it may not be pertinent to the alerting portion, somebody from Print Audit will get back to you directly and answer your questions directly. All right, my favorite so far is the alerting tab does not show on my fm.printaudit.com site, viewing on the iPad. Edward, that's because we haven't launched it yet. We're launching it in a couple of hours, actually 2.5 hours. It'll be live on the system. We're doing it at 12 Mountain, which is 2 Eastern. So thanks for asking that question, and that's why you can't see it on your iPad. Okay, let's start with a question from Teresa. Will we be able to report on alerts generated monthly and types? Yeah, so I think that one would be one of the digests.
Yes, and there's something else that I hadn't gotten to yet, and that's the active alerts page. So one of the things that we've added is a central page that gives you information on all alerts that are active in the system at a specific time. And within that page, you're actually able to filter any of those alerts, so you can see, only your toner low and empty alerts, or perhaps you want to, just look at the, the other consumables or the machine alerts. Those are filterable and viewable in one location on the website, and that is, once again, the active alerts page. So with this, what you can do is view everything that's relevant to you at that moment in time. And of course, you can do things like report on alert history and so forth to see alerts that have occurred in the past on a device. Hope that answers your question, Teresa.
And again, if it doesn't, Teresa, feel free to write us or redirect on this, because we've got a little time for questions. All right, here's another one. From Brian, if you filter the alert by specific devices like HPs, will you be able to add single machines to certain alerts that had already been created?
Yeah, no problem. So if we go back into the alert that I created earlier, and that was just the new profile alert. So I had already use the apply to devices option in this environment. I can simply go back and add an individual device. I can specify the site and the office where I want to view, first of all, and I can say, okay, you know what, I forgot to add this one device in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that selected device, hit done, and now you can see that that device is part of the alert profile and would be subject to the conditions of that alert.
Thanks, Rob. I forgot I was on mute, and I started speaking there, and nobody heard me. Okay, but I think I'm back on. So here's a very specific one that hopefully you can answer, or maybe you'll get stumped. Sharp Machine's toner levels are as follow: 100, 75, 50, 25. Can we set alerts for below 25%, and will this be able to work with Sharp devices?
Yes. So yeah, that's a great point. Not every manufacturer reports toner levels in the same way, and quite frankly, with the the customizability and the options that we give you, we'll be able to handle just about any type of circumstance that you come across in your fleet. When we're talking about a Sharp device, for example, that doesn't report any more detail than those specific levels, what our alert does is not look for a toner level. It looks for anything at or below that toner level. So regardless of whether you're reporting the correct amount, we should be able to capture that. Now, if for some reason that's not the case, then maybe you want to look at this in a different way and try some of the options that we have for configuring alerts through, let's say the machine codes, or you can adjust things like the definitions of toner low, because every device has the ability to report toner low. You can now establish what percentage that for that particular device a toner low indication is referring to. So it might be referring to anything under 25%. Okay, so I believe that we've solved some of those issues, and they've certainly been, difficult ones for our dealers to handle. But this system's got the flexibility to do so.
Cool. Thanks, Rob. Brian redirected after his earlier question about filtering. He asked, will new devices be automatically added to the alert, or will you have to go in and manually add the new machines? So his question before was, if you filter alert by specific devices like HP, if you remember that one, will they automatically be added if the new ones?
Yeah, so one of the things that we give you the option to do is within these profiles, we can automatically add them to certain customer environments. So the way we do so is through default settings. And defaults occur when you create, an alert and you apply it to entire sites or to devices at one time. And the way to do that is to apply these alerts automatically to, let's say, an entire site. So any printers that are appearing in that site would automatically be added to the alert profile, and that's not a problem.
Thanks, Rob. The next two questions here are heckling from our own staff. James has been heckling you on the questions. You answer his questions once you go through. Next one is from Jonathan. It has to do with how a company generates revenue stream using the software, i.e. tickle. We're not tickling right now. All right, typical service charges. What I'm going to do, Jonathan, is we'll have somebody get in touch with you about that because it's a little off of this, but we'll teach you how to generate revenue using print audit software tools. All right. Another one from one of our staff is, can I control what my salespeople see, their own customers?
Absolutely. So first of all, I just want to mention that this system allows you to add as many users to the program as you like. There is no limit, and there's no additional cost associated with individual users being added to the program. So in the case of staff and so forth, you might want to create user profiles for your individual sales reps, give them their own security credentials, and literally provide them with isolated access to, let's say, their own customers only. And not only can you isolate their view to only their customers, but you can also isolate the information that they're seeing. So if you want them to simply be able to see page counts and the assigned cost information, then you uncheck the other areas of information that you don't want them to see and save that profile. This also has implications for your customers because, we talked earlier about help desks and that sort of things. Oftentimes, our dealers work with companies that are large enough to have their own internal support desks and so forth. And those internal support desks may need information on a timely basis, just like the dealer themselves. And this ability to add users to the system, give them access to the information that's captured by the system, but limit that access to, let's say, just their environment and just specific areas of that environment is very, very important. And once again, just another element of flexibility that goes towards meeting our dealers' needs.
Great. Mark, you've got a question about competitive analysis. We'll get back to you on that one, so we'll talk to you directly about that. But the next one from Layman is, how do you compute days remaining, work days, total days, or what? Oh, sorry, is it work days, total days, or what? And I don't know if this is part of the secret sauce, the algorithm that thousands of MIT students have worked on for us, or is it something that you can talk about?
Well, I can certainly talk about it in theory. I don't know if I know the algorithm off the top of my head, but basically the way we calculate days remaining is by first understanding the standard yield on cartridges and using that in order to calculate based on average coverage per document, which we calculate on an ongoing basis, and determine based on current consumption patterns, and obviously those change over time, so as they change, our program changes too, but based on current consumption patterns, how long will the remaining toner in this cartridge last me? And once again, we've had some feedback from dealers that we're bang on, that they're able to establish their supplies processes based on those days remaining. And one thing I should caveat that with is it does require that the printer report in percentage toner levels. So if you don't have a percentage toner level indicator on the printer itself, then that essentially eliminates our program's ability to make those predictions. But with that percentage toner in place, we can make some very accurate predictions based on what we're observing on the device and what we're observing in terms of average coverage per page in that environment.
Good. So I guess the actual question here is, do you know whether it's work days or total day? Do we actually eliminate weekends, or do we know that all of our people worldwide, people's customers worldwide, work weekends as well?
Mm-hmm. That's a nuance that I hadn't considered, and I'm afraid I'll have to. You've kind of stumped me on that one. I don't want to give you the wrong answer, so I'd rather not answer that at all at this point.
All right, so Rob's taking the fifth. Thanks, Layman. We'll find out for you, but I think for the most part it does, just because of the way that it works. It's not going to tell you typically that somebody's going to run out of toner on a weekend, but we'll get back to you on that. Joel asks whether was the webinar recorded, and I can see right now that Rob asked me and Angie and everybody around here to remind him to record it, so we are. So we'll have that for you, and you'll get a link. I've got, let me see, there you go. If I give access to my customers, can I change the branding on the website so it looks like our dealership?
Absolutely. Yeah, so our system is fully brandable by individual companies, and any of our subscription customers, either on Accelerator or Premier, have that available to them at no charge.
Okay, here's something from Daniel that's interesting, and I haven't heard this, maybe you've heard it before, but it says, I've been told by Sharp technicians that those toner levels, so the 25, 50, 100, can be changed at the device. Those with Sharp units should ask their service vendors about that option. So there might be an option within the devices. Do you know about that, Rob, that you can get them to report more specifically?
Well, I certainly have heard of customizability on some of the manufacturer's devices, and to the extent that they're allowing you to make those settings, hey, great, that's going to help your business and help your understanding of how these alerts will work. But specifics on that, I'm afraid I don't have.
Okay, so this next one comes from probably somebody that's not a Premier member, might be an FM dealer, asking about at what tracking level is this available within our system?
So all of the toner management capabilities are available at the gold level. Any of the TCO levels or tracking would be done at the platinum level. So if it has to do with toner, then you've got it at the gold level. If it has to do with TCO, right? Yeah, toner and alerting, correct. So toner, supplies management, meters, and all of those elements are available at the gold level of tracking, whereas any of the TCO or cost calculations would be added through the Premier, or sort of the platinum level. And just as a side note, our subscription customers receive essentially platinum level on all devices. There is no difference at that point. So we don't discern between the various service levels when we're on subscription.
Yeah, so our Premier members and our Accelerator members.
Correct.
Okay, Randy asks, if a customer receives an email alert when their printer reaches 20% toner remaining, what would be the difference between them clicking on Acknowledge Alert as compared to simply deleting the email? Will they get any further alerts for that specific item based on either of these actions?
Yeah, great question, because it really goes to clarity and you know, how this system needs to be used. First of all, I think there's a couple of questions in there. When an alert is generated, if somebody simply deletes that alert, there will not be another alert generated, because of course if you know the recipient of the communication refuses to accept that communication, there's not much we can do about it. However, that alert won't disappear. That will be on the active alerts page. It will presumably not be cleared at that point, so it'll be active, and at that point, if you know that you've got an active alert, you can always, of course, go back into the alert and see who is the final destination for communication on this situation, and you know, hold that person accountable. Now, I'll go into the second part of that question, which is, what is the difference between you know, acknowledging alert and, let's say, clearing alert? You can see here that we have both buttons on the side under the active alerts page. An acknowledgement of the alert could happen when the service tech receives the email alert. There's an acknowledge button right in the email alert, and what that tells the system is that somebody is now on it. Essentially, somebody has taken responsibility for this alert. It doesn't mean it's cleared. It doesn't mean it's going to disappear from the system. What it means is somebody has taken responsibility for it, and we can identify that somebody in the system, but just by simply viewing the alert. In this case, there hadn't been any acknowledgments for that particular alert, whereas in this other case, I had acknowledged that alert, and I did so Tuesday, February 4th at 3:37 p.m. So you can see that an acknowledgement really communicates to the rest of the people in the organization that somebody is on it, and obviously there doesn't need to be additional personnel that are assigned to that alert. Now, whether or not that person takes care of that alert will actually determine whether or not it becomes cleared. So after the acknowledgement, presumably the service tech would take action, and once the system is fixed, the device is corrected in whatever way it needs to be, whether with toner or with other consumables, at that point our system would see that as being cleared and would literally drop that alert off of the active alert page. Now, that brings us back to the one last option that we have with respect to that, which is the manual clearing option, and that's something that really puts power into and control into the person that's responsible for it. I went on a little there. Sorry.
That's okay. I looked back at you to give you the eye. Rob and I are pretty close to each other and doing this kind of radio show style. So I really shouldn't be answering technical questions because Joe from our team got back and explained back for the days remaining. It is total days, and it does not account for weekends, which Daniel very quickly right after I mentioned that said, please do not make alerts based only on work days. Make it as an option. It's not even an option. It just figures it out over total days. So if it happens, if it tells you it's going to happen over a weekend, probably don't deliver toner when those are doing. Joe also got back and said platinum. It requires platinum level tracking to see days remaining. Okay, so hopefully I've cleared that up, and I will try not to answer any more technical questions and pass them on to Rob or Joe. You can feel free to answer. So the next question from Mark is there a way to use the manufacturer's duty cycle of parts and customer volume usage to proactively dispatch preventative service visits?
Yeah, so some of the options are in creating an alert would be to do so on the volumes moving through that. So if we go to our alerting, we can actually look at, let's say, a maintenance required in terms of number of pages, so a multiple of pages, which would, of course, represent the duty cycle and so forth. So, yes, you can trigger alerts based on the volume of pages being printed. I hope that answers your question.
Great. So I'm going to get to one last question because I know you've got one other thing you want to go over, Rob. But does Print Audit show previous supply history for a device? For example, it reported 10% black a week ago, 7% 2 days ago, and is now at 3%. How can I view the changes in supply history for a device?
Well, I think you'd have to set up alerts because then they would become part of the alert history. The information is tracked and it is there. How you get it out of the system at that point may depend on your ability to, run a script against the back-end database potentially. But probably the easier way to do this would be to create an alert, and so that you receive a history on devices as they go through those cycles. If you want to know when a printer is at 70%, then set an alert so that you see all the printers when they're at 70%, and that will be part of the history. Now, obviously, you've got other workflows associated with that. The clearing options and whatnot could be programmed so that those alerts aren't necessarily triggering a toner dispach.
Hey, Rob,
that would become part of the information.
Russell just wrote saying, "Hey, thanks. That's a good answer." So I think so I'll tell you something else.
Russell, what can I tell you?
Joe wrote in on that one as well. Joe from our team. This is a major piece of something that we are going to improve on this over the next few months. We've got a plan to add in another level to this to be able to do exactly what you're talking about. But it's coming very soon, and we will be able to see what the alert was before. So it's not in this release, but what we did with this release was we allowed ourselves to get to that step, and so we're putting it together. So I'm not going to any other questions that come in, we're going to answer you directly. Thank you, everybody that took the time to do that. So what I'd like you to do, Rob, and thanks a lot for going through that, can you give our audience today a 2-minute overview of where FM sits in the print audit world so that they can see all the pieces that are offered around FMs and integrate into FM?
Absolutely. This is, a very important part of our offering. FM is a piece in the puzzle. It represents one of the tools in our print management toolkit, and that print management toolkit is offered under subscription or on an a la carte basis, but the most successful dealers we work with now are working under our Premier program, and that is a program that gives them access to a whole range of print management capabilities, including device and workflow assessment, device and workflow management, user management, and that also incorporates embedded tracking capabilities on a variety of the OEMs. So these are very, very valuable tools. They represent not only tools that the dealer can use to facilitate their MPS program, they also represent tools that the dealer's customer can use to implement a print management strategy or a document output strategy. And sometimes that can have more benefits than simply managing the devices themselves. Makes sense considering printers don't print, it's actually people that print. So helps to look at those as well.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, as Rob mentioned, the Premier membership has been extremely successful for Print Audit, but also way more so for our Premier members. They're winning new customers, they're keeping their current customers, and they're building a massive recurring revenue. Just yesterday, we hit 270 Premier members worldwide, and over 100 of last year's dealers that came onto the system switched from other systems because of all the things that we offer. So we're really excited about how well that's worked. And so I'll leave it with that. That's all for today, folks. For our lucky Premier members and current dealers, we're launching the new Facilities Manager V3 in about 2 hours. And so watch for those changes. Any of our current customers that if there's any issues, because of course we're migrating literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of current alerts, and it's a massive migration, so we're really excited about how it's going to work for you guys. If you have any issues or have any questions, call support, reach out to your local sales team, and if you want us to take you through this individually, we're happy to do it. And for those that are dying to try the system, and I'm sure after seeing this today you are, those that aren't current FM dealers and Premier members, all you have to do is go to printaudit.com, click on the free trials at the top of the menu bar and find Facilities Manager, and you fill out a quick form and somebody will get with you on how to do it. It's very quick to set up, faster than any other system out there. So thank you for joining us for the Rob and John Morning Show. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be doing this again next week at the same time. So if you want to watch it again, or tell all your friends, because of course they're going to want to watch this, we're excited to be doing this again. So watch for the launch today at noon Mountain.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time. Good luck with your sales.